What's up guys, welcome back, and in this video I'd like to show you guys how to customize Voyager. A few videos back when I started using Voyager, we had to do an extra step when we were adding categories to products. So we have this category product model over here, and every time we wanted to add a category to a product, we had to go in here, get the product ID, get the category ID, and essentially just put it into this pivot table over here. It works, but it's not ideal. What I would like to have happen is similar to WordPress, where you have the categories in here as we're making a post and just add it from there. So we'll go over how to do that, and we'll learn about customizing views and controllers in Voyager to fit our needs. It's actually not very difficult, it's just overriding a bunch of Voyager's files. Alright, first let's talk about how to override views. So there's actually documentation on that, and it tells you to create a new file in this path in our application with the slug name of the bread that you want to override. So let me show you what I mean. So we want to override our products, and each of these views has its own specific file, which I'll show you in a sec. This one is called browse, and the edit and the add are together. And what we want to have happen is we want to have categories in here, just like in WordPress, like I said. So yeah, let me show you where these views live. So into our code, if we go into the vendor, TCG, Voyager, where is it? Resources, views, right here, bread. So like I said, there are 3 views here. Edit and add are the same, that's why it's called edit add. Browse is for the one before, and read is for the view file. So let me just show you. So this is the edit add, this is the page we're on now. And if I just customize this, do test there, and I come back, then you'll see it appear here. There it is. So to override this, let me just take this out. You don't want to edit this file because it's in the vendor folder. So what does it say here? We want to make a new one, so vendor Voyager slug name, and our slug name is products. So vendor Voyager products. Let's make that folder. Resources, views, new folder, vendor, new folder, Voyager, new folder, products. Products still. And then within here, we'll just grab this and we'll make a new file. Name it the same, edit add.blade.php. Actually, let me not paste that in for a sec, but let me just show you that this is overriding the original view. So right now, when we go to that, it's going to be blank because I'm overriding it with a blank page. So if I refresh it should be blank. And it is, cool. Now if I paste that in, it should work the same way as before. But now we have complete control over the view. Where is it? Right here. So our view. Let's make sure that works. Cool. Alright, now let's get a checkbox down here somewhere, which represents the categories. Okay, so let's undo this. And then where am I going to put it? So after this for each, so this for each just goes through all of these fields and outputs the appropriate form type. So after that's done, let's put it in here. Let's do test to see if that's in the right spot. It should be right here. right? Okay, so let's put a checkbox in there. Let me just grab one of these form groups. Actually, I just want to see the format of how they do their forms, and I'm just going to copy it from here. So it's just a label and then the actual field. Okay. So let's just do label. We don't need this. Let's name it categories. And then I'm just going to copy WordPress from here. See what they have. I'm just going to grab this whole thing over here. Yeah, that looks good to me. And we'll format it later on. And as you can see, there is a name on it, and it's an array type, so that's good. Let's see if that works. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So now let me show you how to override controllers from within Voyager. So this controller is the edit controller, edit method on one of the controllers. Let me just show you what I mean. So again, if we go into Voyager, where is it now? I think it's in the source directory. HTTP controllers. There's a controller here, right here, called Voyager Bread Controller. And this is in charge of, for every bread we make, this is the controller that handles all the CRUD or bread on it. So again, let me show you what I mean. So index, if I just do a die and dump index, then you'll see this page will stay the same, but if we go to the index page, there you go. So for what we're interested in, it is the edit. Where is it? Edit. Right here. So if I die and dump edit, this should work now. But if I go into edit, again, it's edit, add are the same. Actually, no, for the controller it's different. But this should be the correct one. Okay, cool. So what we want to do is the same thing we did for views, and we want to make our own controller. Now, if you go into the documentation, it's kind of confusing as to what they're trying to say here. I actually don't do it this way. The way I do it is, so from within Voyager, if we go into our bread for products, there is actually a place to add your custom controllers. And if you do add one, then this will take precedence over this file that I just showed you. So let me show you what I mean. Let's make a new one called this. As you can see, I already have it in my autocomplete because I've done it before. So we just want to make this new namespace in our app. So we already have this namespace. Let's just add Voyager and products controller. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, let me save this first. So Voyager products controller, save. And now, if I go to products, that's not going to work because that controller doesn't exist. There you go. So let's go ahead and create it. App, HTTP, controllers, what's it called? Voyager products controller. So Voyager, and new file, products controller. Now let's grab all of this. We don't need everything, but we'll grab everything for now. Paste it in. And we got to change some stuff in the namespace. So this is no longer the namespace. It's app HTTP Voyager controllers, sorry. Like that. Sorry, like that, Voyager. And this is now called products controller. And this doesn't extend controller, it extends Voyager bread controller. That's this one right here. So we're just extending this one and make sure we import that. Okay. Save. Now let's see if this works. And it does. Now again, if let's go to index and just make sure we're using our new file here. And we are cool. So in our case, what are we trying to do? We're trying to change this edit, and we want to pass in the categories. So let's go ahead and do that. So we are in the edit function, and down here we want to pass in all the categories. So let's do something like this. All categories gets category all. And make sure we import this. Okay. Also, we have to pass it in here. As you can see, it's using the compact function. So let's just go ahead and pass in all categories. Now in our view, we can pass in the categories. So let's go to our view. Actually, this whole thing should be wrapped in a form group. Okay. Let me just do something like this. We'll leave the hard-coded for now, but we'll also do a for each all categories. So all the categories we just passed in as category. Let's just grab one of these and format it accordingly. So we don't need this ID. We don't need a class on the label. Sorry. Input. Okay, so the value is going to be the category ID. Let's go ahead and do that. Type checkbox. The name is going to be, let's just name it category. Category array, okay. We don't need this ID. We don't need, we'll work on the checked later to see if it's selected or not. This is going to be the category name, I believe. Category name. Okay, and if I did that correctly, that should show up here. All the categories should show up there. And they do, cool. Okay, we no longer need these ones. Let me just remove those. Actually, we have to wrap this in UL tags. Sorry. Okay, and we no longer need this. Cool. Let me just fix the styling. I'm going to put it inline for now, and behind the scenes I'll move it to my CSS. List style type none. I believe that's padding left. You don't want any of that. or is it margin? It's padding, cool. And I need some, I think on the checkbox, I want some margin. Let's see. So on the input, I mean, yeah. All right. So let's just put it here. Style equals margin right, I don't know, 5. All right, that looks good to me. So now we have our categories, and let's just make sure. Okay, so yeah, the values correspond to the category's ID, which is what we want. So now let me just make sure that this new form field that we have here for the categories is passed through when we hit save. So we don't need this anymore, and we don't need that. But in our, yeah, so the method that gets called is the update function once we hit save. Let me prove that to you. If I just die and dump, hit save. There you go, saving. So let's just make sure, sorry, I should just do this to show you. That new request all, the new checkboxes are coming through on the request. So you just save this. Let me just check a few. So laptops, desktops, mobile phones, and they are cool. So the ones that are being checked are the ones that are being passed through. And if there are none checked, then that shouldn't be passing through. Cool. Let's just make sure if it's just one checked. Let's see. Okay, cool. So that works. So now let's think about what we actually want to have happen. So I'm here, I'm editing a product, and for each one that's checked, say we have 2 checked, we want to add a new entry in our pivot table. Let me just open my my database. So here's our pivot table right here, and we want this product, specifically 85. After we hit save, we want this product to have 2 new entries with these categories. So how do we do that? Let me just remove this. So for update, so here's where it gets inserted normally, but we want to add something new. So here's what we want to do. So first thing we want to do is actually clear out any entries that are there from before. And we can do that using this category product model that we already have. Remember we created that before, and that's just, let me show you. It's just a model for the pivot table. So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to delete. So every product, every instance that has this product ID, we want to delete it. So where the ID is coming in from the request up here, right there, and that's just corresponding to this specific product that we're on, and we want to delete it. Delete. Oops, sorry. All right, let me just import this. Okay. Now we want to reinsert them. So reinsert if there's at least one category checked. If there's no categories checked, then we redeleted all of them. So that's what we want. But if there's at least one checked, we have to re-add them. So to do that, You can just check the request category. That means if at least one's checked. Let's do a for each. So for each request category as category, we don't need the value. We can just do category product. We can create new ones. And we have the product ID. The product ID is just going to be the current product that we're on, and we're getting that in from the request, so just do that. And we want the category ID. Sorry, this should be that. And this is just the thing we're looping over. And if I did that correctly, that should work. I'm actually expecting an error here. Let me just show you what I mean. Yeah, so we're getting a mass assignment exception. That's because in our model we have to do protected fillable equals, we need the, so let me show you, we have to make these two mass assignable, so product ID and category ID. Array product ID and category ID. So if I try that again, that should have worked. So let's just see. So which one was that? 85. And I believe I checked two of them. It's not going to show checked here. We'll work on that next. But if I check my database, let's just check for 85. Product ID 85. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I just checked one of them, I believe. That didn't work. Let's try again. So laptops and desktops for product 85. Save that. Okay, now I should check my database. Refresh. Okay, there you go. 85 has laptops and desktops as a category. And if you want to double check, what's 85? 85 is this new product here. So if we shop, should be in here. There's that new product. Did I name it new? I did. And it should also be under desktops. And there it is. Cool. Okay, now let's make sure. If I go back into here, we only did that logic for the edit view here. If we go to add, this is going to show because the views are shared between edit and add, but the controller methods are not. See? We didn't define this all categories. It's showing in the view because it's pulling from the view, but we have to define this as well in the add. So in the, what's it called? Let me just show you. So products controller. So we just did edit and update. We also have to do create and store. Sorry. Show, no, create. Create, yes, create. So let's do the same thing we did in edit. So right here, let me just grab it down here. Where is it? Just this, and we'll pass it through. So create, let's just do this, and we'll pass it in here. So categories. Okay, that should fix the error. Okay, and it shows up there. Cool. But now we also have to work on the logic. So if we just go to update, just grab that logic. We no longer need to delete because the product was just added, so it has no categories for the add case. So let's just grab this. It's repetitive, and I'm going to extract this out to a helper method later on, but let me just show you that it works for now. Okay, so back to create. Sorry, not create, store. So yeah, right here. Just do that. Okay, so there's no ID anymore, but to get that ID, we just have to grab it from here. So it's going to be data ID. And yeah, everything else is the same. So that should work for the add case or the create. So let me just make a new product and show you that it works. So another one, details, $3.99.99, description, and I am going to add this to instruments and appliances. We save. Oh, I already have. I never took off that validation rule from before. Let's do anot. A-N-O-T, anot. Save. Okay. And so 86 should have 2 entries in the pivot table. Let me refresh. 86, 7, and 8. Awesome. Okay, now, so add is fine, but like I showed you earlier, when I hit edit and there's already categories, we want these to be checked to indicate that the category is corresponding to the product. So let's go ahead and do that. So back to our code, let's go back to the edit function, and down here where we grab the categories, let's do one more thing here. Let's grab the product in question. So it's just product find by the ID that's being passed in. And let me import the product. Okay. And I'm just going to grab all the categories for this specific product. So to do that, product, there's already a relationship called categories. And I'm just going to get all of those. So this just comes from our product model. And there's a relationship between categories that belongs to a product, belongs to a category, belongs to many categories. And let me just, I'll explain to you in a second why we need this. Oh, we also have to pass it in here. So categories for product. Sorry. String, categories for product. And now in our view, right here, where we defined if it's checked or not. So if we just do checked, every single one's going to be checked. Let's just double check. Okay. So what do we want to do here? Let's do a ternary here. And all we're going to do is, so that thing we just passed in, categories for product. We're going to check if it contains the current category. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And if it does contain it, then what we're going to do, we're going to check it. But if not, then it shouldn't be checked. So we'll just pass an empty string. And if I did that correctly, and it looks like I did, then it only checks the ones that are already a category of this product. And let's just add more. Let's add mobile phones and tablets. Save that. And if we check down here, if you go back into it, then you can see they've been added there, and so 85 should have 4 categories now. 85, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. But that probably screwed up our add functionality. So I just go back to products, add, yeah, because this variable does not exist. So let's go ahead and just pass in an empty variable with that name. So back to our controller. Where's that? It's in create. So right here, what did I name it? Category for product. Categories for product. So categories for product. We'll just do an empty collection. I think an array would work too, but we'll just do that. For product. Let's double check. Okay. And let's just add a new one. New one again. 49999. Okay, let's just do 1, 2, just to make sure it works. And it does not work. Duplicate entry new for. Oh, I think I have. Yeah, the name has a unique constraint on it. Actually, I shouldn't be doing that because some products can have the same name, but like they have different details. So yeah, I should change that. Okay, let's see if that worked. Okay, and it did. Once we edit it, it worked. Now I'd like to show you how to further customize this form. If you go into posts, Voyager has its own model called posts. And if you go into edit, you'll see that it's much nicer than the one we have in products. Let me just open this in 2 tabs. You see, sorry. So this one we see here in products, you saw me copy it from the view, and this is the default one. And obviously we just added the categories, but you can further customize it however you like to make it look more nice, like this, where it has 2 columns. You can put like the image here, you can put the categories here if you like, and this really reminds me of how WordPress does it. And I'm not going to do that here, but take a look at how Posts does it. So let me show you where it is. So down here, Voyager, Resources, Views, should be one called, right here, Posts. And this is the customized one here. So if we were to do it in hours, like I said, I'm not going to do it, but we can like have 2 columns. Okay, let me just show you a brief outline of how it would look. So panel body, where's that? I think it's this, yeah, okay. Okay, so if I were to do like this, dot row, and then, Sorry, this is cumbersome, but I just want to show you what I mean. And then dot call md, say 9. Okay. Now that should look like that with 9 columns. Okay, I messed it up, but I think you understand what I'm trying to do. Just format your markup so that it has 2 columns, but make sure that when you do that, the form encapsulates all your fields. So this form right here should encapsulate all your fields. If you look at the posts, you'll see that, where's the form here? The form encapsulates everything, including, yeah. I hope that makes sense. I would definitely do this in a real application, just so it's a bit nicer when we're messing around with the model. But I'm not going to do it here because it's a lot of work. Let me quickly refactor this code over here because it happens in 2 places. One here, which is the update method, and one in the store method. And it's doing pretty much the same thing. So let's just cut this out. Let's call this update product categories. And it's going to take in the request and the ID. Yep. Is this the one with the ID? Yeah, it is. Okay. And we'll make this in a second. Actually, let's make it right now. So down here, let's make a new one called update product categories. And it's going to take in request and it's going to take in the ID. And we can just paste that in and we can reindent it. Cool. Let's make it protected. And let's also, where is it? Category product. Okay, so we did it for this one, but we also want to do it for here in the store method. But the only difference here is we're passing in data ID, and that should still work. Let me just do a quick check. Just do this. And let's add a few new categories. And that worked. Cool. Just a quick note about overriding methods. If you're not overriding the method, then don't put it in your new controller. So let me show you what I mean. So here's all the methods that we just copied from the original file. And we are only overriding edit, update, create, and store. So for the other ones, we don't want to put them in here because, one, we're not using them, and if Voyager receives updates in the future and we're overriding those methods that received updates, then we're not going to get them because we're overriding those methods. So only override the ones that you want to make changes to. So we don't need destroy. And we don't need cleanup, I guess. Yeah, we don't need all this stuff over here. So yeah, just delete the ones you don't need. And I'm going to do that behind the scenes. So here are the methods that are remaining. I didn't remove index because we're going to be doing something with that in a second. But the other ones I've erased. And since we're extending this, if they don't exist here, that's okay because it will find it in the original controller. Alright, this video is getting quite long, but there's one more thing that I'd like to take care of, and that's the price over here. Right now it's showed in cents, but that's kind of awkward for the admin to add it in cents, and I'd like to make it in dollars. So I'm going to try this real quick. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is when the admin enters the price in, we want to make sure they add that in dollars. So let's put some validation on this. So from within the bread builder, edit the bread. Let's just go to price. And remember, there's a bug, so we have to change this to lowercase price. It has to match this. But for the validation, I'm just going to paste it in. And this is just it's requiring it, and it's just having a regex, which I just took off the internet. And all that regex does is it just matches a price amount, and it takes 1 or 2 decimal places at the end. And just make sure that when you're using backslash, just make sure to escape it and you have 2 slashes. Alright, so let me submit that. Let's go back into our products. Now, this should have a validation on it. I mean, this will still work because it's still a valid dollars value. But if I were to do something like 3 decimal places, that's not going to work. There you go. Price format is invalid. So, yeah, let's add $4.99.99. So that should work. Save it. And let's go back to it. But as you can see, it's still entering it as cents because we didn't change the logic to convert it from dollars to cents. So that's going to be our next step. So let's go into our code. Let's go into our store function. Sorry. Store. Yep. So this is the one for adding. We have to do it for update as well. So right here. So let me just do this. Make a new variable called request new. And all that is doing is just grabbing what we have in the request. And now let's just change the price of this one. And that should be request price, and we're going to multiply it by 100 because we want it in cents in our database. And I spelled that wrong. And all we have to do is pass in the new request. Everything else is the same except for the fact that we changed the price to have cents now. So let's do the same thing in, what method is this? In update. So let's go to update. So down here, same thing. I should put this in a helper like we did before, but I don't want to. Okay, request new. Okay, now if we did this correctly, we do $4.99.99 and we save and we go back to it. Now it's storing it as cents like we want to. But the next problem is obviously we want it to display as dollars. So let's fix that. So let's go into our edit add blade, and I'm going to do it with JavaScript instead of diving into the backend. I found that it's so much easier just using JavaScript. So all I'm going to do is grab the price And we're just going to use jQuery here since they're using it already as well, and just makes it easier for me. Input. So there's an input name equals price. Okay. And let's just grab the value of that. So that val will be that. And all we're going to do is just change it. And we're just going to do price divided by 100. And that should do it. So yeah, it's still coming back like this from the backend, but we're just going to intercept it using JavaScript and divide it, and then this should show 499.99 when I refresh. And it does. Cool. So let's make sure that works. Let's change this to $699.99. Save. Okay, go back into it. There we go, $699.99. But if you had a keen eye and you saw on the browse page, it's still showing cents here, so we have to override that view as well. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Where's that? It is somewhere in here. Browse. So I'm going to grab this, copy it. Let's make a new one in ours. So new file, browse.blade.php, paste it in, and where is it? Here is where it renders the price. So all it's doing here is it's checking what type. Let me just show you. So here, it's checking what type it is, so it knows how to render it accordingly, because each one of these types renders differently. And after looking at the code for a few minutes, I found that price renders in here, and it's just in an else block. All of them have a specific one. Like for example, it renders here if it's coordinates, it renders like this if it's multiple images, but for the number field, which is what we have our price as, it's just rendering here. Let me show you. If I do that, it should show hacks and then the price. There you go. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm just going to do a conditional. So if and the row display name is equal to price, and you can extend this and make it case insensitive if you want, but I'm just going to leave it. And let's make an else clause in here as well. So for the else clause, it's just going to be like it was before, but if it's a price, then all we want to do is divide by 100. So we just divide by 100 here, and we can even put the $sign if we like. And if I did that correctly, this should now be in dollars. And it is. Cool. So there you have it, guys. We managed to customize Voyager to our needs, specifically the categories in our products, as well as displaying the price in dollars. We've overridden views and controllers and made Voyager work the way we want it to work. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.